December is coming up and it is time to prepare my bullet journal. This year I didn't feel like doing anything holiday related or wintry with snowflakes or anything like that. I did that last year, so if you're interested to see that, you can check out last year's video that is linked for you below. This time though, I wanted to create a very simple theme, keeping the decorations as minimal as possible for my own standards. And I would like to take you along with me and show you how I set up my spreads from scratch. This means that I did not pre-plan anything, the dots aren't counted, and the layouts aren't pre-drawn. I only know at this point which types of spreads I need. First, I choose the main accent of a theme, go through my stationery and add things that I think would go well with it. Recently, I have been doing a lot of plant stuff, like this baby spider here that I've been growing. And I found some beautiful houseplant stickers in my stash that I will use as my main decorative element, and I will be building up my theme around it. For example, I choose a few colors that I think go well with the color scheme of my main accent, in this case with the plants and the colors of the pots. For the washi tape, I wanted a neutral one, and then in case that I want to create more layers, I also have these crafty notepads. Let's see if and how I will use them. Layering different materials creates more texture, so to add even more depth, I thought I would also use this patterned rubber stamp that also matches the washi tape very well, with some black ink. And then of course there are the essential basics, such as glue, a pencil to figure out the layouts, for example, a cutting knife, and some black fine liners. An eraser is also always good to have, and in case I decide to letter some headers, a calligraphy pen. One more thing that I like to use are organizational stickers, but you will see them in the course of the setup. Alright, let's bring out the notebook then. Since September, I'm using this beautiful notebook that I've been very happy to have. I have a video of how I migrate into this journal, so be sure to check that out as well. But first, leave a like to help fight the algorithm. The first spread that I will need is the monthly calendar. I divided the page into half to then add this number strip as the central element of my calendar. But before I put the sticker down, I noted where the weekends are to highlight them with a marker. This, in my opinion, makes the calendar prettier while it looks still very clean. And at the same time, you can see at a glance which day of the week it is without having to actually write down headers for the days of the week, if that makes sense. Putting the number strip in the middle of the calendar sort of divides it into two sections, which allows me to separate work-related events from private things, which is something that I found very useful. So even though I chose all my decorative elements in the beginning, I added one more thing because I decided that I didn't want to write out any header this time. So I got out my beloved label maker and made a cute little December header that, in my opinion, fits the houseplant / farmhouse sort of theme very well. Even though I have rather thin pages with 80 GSM paper, the December label isn't really noticeable on the following page. I've been surprised with all the media that I could actually use in this Leuchtturm notebook. I've even used watercolor in the past, and it has worked perfectly fine. So now to build up some nice decor around the header, I just put some materials right in front of me and tested out some options to see what I would like. In the end, I decided for this little pothos here, which is a plant that is very easy to grow and that I've had a lot of fun with propagating it and creating a bunch of new tiny little plant babies. Now I decide how the paper would need to be to look good in this whole arrangement. And even though in the beginning I had 3 different types of notepads, I ended up using just this grid one. Sticking to the same elements and using them over and over again in the spread makes them look cohesive. Looking where the next sticker was going to go, I decided for the bottom right corner because it's sort of diagonally on the opposite side of the December header arrangement, which ties both spreads very well together, I think. That also left the bottom left corner quite empty, and I just decided to use my accent colors and just draw a small color palette. That seems always a quite easy and decent strategy to fill up some empty space. One nice feature of the Leuchtturm notebook is that it has some perforated pages in the back, which is handy in moments like now where I would like some blank dotted page to craft with. The idea for this header was that I kind of wanted to create a similar label to the December header, just with inverted colors. So instead of white on black, I tried to imitate the font and wrote overview for the December overview page black on white. I find it easier to create spreads when I choose my supplies beforehand, or at least a range of supplies that I could choose from while creating. That just limits the options and makes it easier for me to actually make decisions of how I'm gonna assemble and create the spreads. If I had my entire stationery collection next to me to choose from, I would be completely overwhelmed and probably would end up creating a bunch of individual spreads that are not really cohesive. Before gluing everything down, I just check the placement again to make sure I really like it. Now I realized that the overview label didn't really pop, so I tried to fix that with a black frame. Later I also added some gray drop shadow with a marker to make it pop even more. The next spread is going to be my spending log. I like to really note down what I spend because I believe that it makes me more conscientious about the things that I actually buy. So even small things I note here, and in the end of the month I just add up all the expenses and compare that sum to my income to see how much I was able to save or whether I need to change my consumption behavior in the following month. Again, I pre-draw the layout with a pencil. So here I am creating 2 columns with a dividing gap between them. One of the columns will be for expenses in dollars and the other one for purchases in euros. Since I am living in the US, but nevertheless spend some euros every now and then. Again, before doing anything irreversible, I first figured out the placement of the different elements of the spread. So before lining out the columns, I decided where the header would be going, as well as the plants, which are of course the main decorative accents. And again, I decided to put them into opposite corners, because I just think that ties both spreads really well together. Actually, when I set up my bullet journal off camera, I never go one spread after the other in a chronological order, but I jump back and forth. So when filming, it is always a challenge to me to actually start with one spread, finish it, and then go to the next spread, one after the other. Each column has 3 sections, one to first write in the date of a purchase, then the item that was purchased. That could also be a service, for example, or stuff like rent, and then the amount. For the header, I basically followed the same steps as with the previous one, only that this time I came up with the idea to add a drop shadow to make the header pop a little more from the washi tape. To switch up things a bit, I used the label maker again for the next header, and this is going to be a gift list. Since Christmas is coming up, and I really enjoy giving things to people, even if it is just small things or things that I crafted myself. The gift list helps me to collect ideas and actually get everything without stressing out like last minute, which probably I'm gonna do anyway. And also to make sure I don't forget anyone important that I really want to give a gift. I also have a general list for gift ideas on the first pages of my bullet journal, where I just write down gift ideas for specific people as they come to my mind, like randomly while cleaning or whatever. These things always come to me in moments like these, or when I see something that I think, oh, this would be great for that person, then I'm gonna write it down there. So that gift list in the front of my journal will help me a lot with setting up my Christmas gift list. But the Christmas gifts won't take up the space of the entire spread, so I'll use the lower part of the page for some trackers. I don't really need a habit tracker right now, because the main habits that I'm trying to establish are health, workout, and self-care related, and I already have these long-term collections in the front of my journal. Two things that I really need to do though, and that I like to forget too easily, are making sure to drink enough water and to take my iron every other day. So I set up a water and iron tracker. I haven't really thought about the layout of this tracker beforehand, but since I only have the bottom part of the page left for it, I decided that it had to be some horizontal table. So my goal for water is to drink minimum 5 glasses of water each day. For that, I just put down the numbers 1 to 5 in Roman letters because they look a bit fancier. And then one line for the iron, and vertically I add the dates for each day of the month. I also thought about integrating the water tracker into the weekly layouts, but since I have 5 units of water a day that I would like to check off, it actually takes up a bunch of space that I didn't want to give up in my weekly spreads. I didn't really have the room to write out iron, so I had this brilliant idea to just use the element iron how it is represented in the periodic table. At this point I had the problem that this corner here looked very empty to me, and again I chose to solve that with adding a color palette here. And this is my relatively simple houseplant/farmhouse December setup. For the monthly setup, these are all the spreads that I need. And I'm pretty sure if I would set up more spreads than that, I would end up not using them. So I really believe in reducing things to realistic and doable amounts. The weekly spreads I will set up in a separate video, so stay tuned for that. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I wish you all a cozy December.